What is going on, YouTube? Vajir is here, and welcome to episode 4 of the Heart. I was about to say the Heart series, but technically it's the Chess series, the Heart of Chess. And today we are going to go straight into the difference between 1500 to 1800s. Now, I apologize for not being able to make this sooner. I've been actually quite busy, been doing a lot of training classes along with work. I'm still trying to figure out like the perfect balance between how do I create content while at the same time not absolutely like destroying myself. I bet some of you actually understand how that feels. So what I'm going to do is that I probably will start creating much more content and then start releasing it on a daily basis. Like I'll try and get 2 videos a day. So one day when I'm completely off work and I have some time to myself, I can just create nothing but content for you folks. So that way I'll be keeping up with the latest activity of and chess commentary and chess lessons of what I want to really focus on. But yeah, getting into this, I want to talk about 1500s and 1800s. And in my opinion, the difference is quite different than how it was with the 12 to 1500s. Well, actually, no, 12 to 15, it's pretty significant. You can see the difference clearly in play. But 15 and 18, it's a different there's a huge difference in another aspect. So to recap from 12 to 1500, it was all about the understanding of what to do. However, when you're 1500, you have that basic understanding, and when you're 1800, well, you do have understanding as well. But the one thing I find that separates both, in my opinion, in chess games and myself being used to being a 1500 and then observing others as well, is the fact that there's a certain lack of discipline, of like a wide gap between both 15 and 1800s. Now, what do you mean by discipline? Well, the thing about discipline is not necessary. Discipline is nothing to do with your technical aspect of chess. So, for example, cognitive thinking, critical thinking, analyzing, anything of that nature. That's not what discipline is. Discipline is the human aspect of chess. So, psychology, how you feel, timing, how you deal with pressure, emotions, etc. I think in this case, that's where the biggest difference is when it comes to discipline. And one of the characteristics in discipline that I see is very separate is blunders. Blunders is huge in chess, especially separating 15 and 1800. And I think this is where at these two stages that this is the widest mark. 18 to 2000s, the blunders are not that much. It actually gets less and less as time goes on. And then there becomes other things that allows one opponent to win against another opponent. But for 15 to 1800s is definitely blunders. And there are so many ways that blunders can happen. It can happen from your opponent putting you in an uncomfortable situation and you need to figure out what the alternative is and you just choose the wrong answer. Another thing is it could be emotional pressure in who you're playing against, the psychology behind it, the fact it could be time pressure. It could be, and here's one of the biggest ones in my opinion people do, rushing. You folks, you want to get better in chess, especially if you're like 15, 16, even 1700, stop rushing. And I don't mean rushing like you're playing blitz and you're playing all these fast moves real quick. No, you have to be aware that any move that happens, if you rush one move, the game is over. And I've seen so many games where opponents, and it happens to me too, a move will be rushed once, and then the game just went from like slightly worse or slightly better to completely lost. Now, if chess players are rushing, specifically in the 15, 16, 1700s, how do you stop rushing? That leads to blundering. Well, again, it's kind of like going back to your basics in chess. Whenever an opponent moves, observe where all the opponent spots the opponent can go to, decide which spot they prefer best, and then either stop them, neutralize them, or counterattack. At the same time, also assess whether your threats are stronger than his or hers. If your threats are stronger, then pounce, because then you know they're going to either go back or they're going to try and go forward, and it'll be futile because your attack is stronger. If they go back, then you have the pressure on them, and now the onus is on them to defend correctly while you maintain the correct pressure, while making sure you don't blunder. And again, rushing it. Believe it or not, rushing happens just as often in classical games than it does in speed games. It could just be that you see a move and you don't think it through. You don't think of the possibilities, and then you just make the move. And then you just realize that you just made a slightly worse move, which now can transpire into opponent's advantage. One example of this is that I actually played a recent game with someone. It was a fan actually from uh, this YouTube channel. I don't know if it's a he or she. Actually, I really don't know. But I'll just say their name was Sierra1408. And what happened was that I was in the middle of debating how to record my next YouTube video, and they did challenge me, and I said, why not? Let's accept the challenge. And by the way, if you guys want to challenge, or you folks want to challenge me, by all means, if you see me on LinkedIn or Trust.com, just send me a challenge. I'll say yes, because no one challenges me randomly to a classical game. So I know that if you're challenging me, it definitely means because you saw me on Reddit or YouTube, etc. So Sierra and I play a game, and I told you before my openings are quite weakened. I'm not as knowledgeable. I have to keep up. I'm really lacking in the latest theory. So I get into a worse position, which leads to uh, myself about to lose a pawn. Although, in my defense, I was going to get rid of the pawn in order to get some counterplay and get some activity. So it's one of those trade-offs. You lose a pawn, you gain activity, and see if you can get back to equal or put pressure on your opponent and cause them to make a mistake. So Sierra had me in a very annoying position, and Sierra had more time, and it was a 15-minute plus 5 increment game. And then out of nowhere, Sierra proceeded to make a couple of really bad, like, I mean, bad to the point where the game just changed within 2 moves. And I proceeded to take advantage of that, and then later on, I won the game. So I spoke to Sierra and I said, "All right, let's review your game. Let me take this. Let's take this as a lesson, and we'll break down what you should have done against me, the things you have to notice, and then your blunders, and why did you make these blunders." And for all you folks, if you want to have me review a game personally, or even play a game and then do a lesson, I'm very happy. I like doing that stuff. So yeah, send me a message on YouTube or PM me or etc. Or even post on Reddit. I'll just let me know and I'll pick if there's a time where I'm online. I'll gladly do it. But what happened was I started going to blunders, and then I started asking, why are you making blunders? And all he said was, well, I was scared of the fact that you're rated at like 2095. I recently won a tournament with just starting classical, so I went from 1600 to 2095 because you know how the boost is, right? And I was kind of scared that, and I decided to. I didn't really have a plan anymore after my original plan was going after your d6 pawn. So after everything that Sierra said, all that was concluded in my mind was a bit of rushing, a severe lack of confidence, and not continuing to follow through with the opening. So that's something that I really noticed, and that's the discipline that a player needs to have. Is you need to seriously crush your emotions, get rid of the idea of who you're playing or who the person's rating is, and just continue on with your plan and think of the best move every time and look ahead. he was rated like about 1500, and he got me in an already annoying opening because I just didn't know how to play that opening in particular, that one particular variation. That game could have easily transpired to advantage and even possibly a win, or at least minimum them getting a draw if they needed to. But instead, the human aspect came in, and a lack of discipline led to me winning the game in the next 6, 7, 8 moves. Now, this discipline is really important, and I find that the fastest way to gain discipline is simply just to control yourself. It's kind of like any of you folks do stock market. You realize that when you invest in stocks, you have to kill the emotion. Even you have to sometimes realize that when a stock's going down and you're making losses, you just have to sell, even if it's at a loss. Because if you keep on hoping that, again, the keyword hope, that you're going to continue, it's going to get back on track, it's just going to get worse, and you're just going to lose more money. It's the same thing for poker players. I actually played poker for over 12 years, so I'm very strong when it comes to emotional control. But again, we're all humans, so we all tilt, etc. But when you're playing poker for thousands of dollars, you learn how to control your emotions and kill them, because that doesn't help. Your mind needs to rule the game, just like in chess. Your mind needs to rule, not your emotions. I did talk about earlier videos about if you certainly get a gut instinct or a feeling, and you find it pure and it's not being hindered, follow it, because I always trust my gut. But it doesn't really happen in chess. Chess is problem recognition, understanding, solving, etc. So focus on those emotional aspects. Focus on being disciplined, and you will improve psychologically. Your game might not necessarily be better in terms of ability, but your recovery, your ability to come back, your ability to filter out all the noise, if that makes sense, and then process and then come up with a plan. What I told Sierra was, you got to follow through with your plan. You had a great plan. Figure out ways to exploit your opponent. I also taught him or her a lesson from my last video on tempo is everything, and never give your opponent a chance to breathe and put in an extra move. If you have an attack, go straight for it. And worst case scenario, remember, if you're attacking someone, they're not attacking you. You're safer. That's the cool thing about chess. If they're attacking you, and yeah, they can be counter attacking yourself, but then that's just okay. That's fine. That's just like it's just a base race or a horse race, etc. But normally, when someone's attacking, other person's defending, and your cane is a lot safer. So already you're putting pressure on them to perform in defense, and attacking psychologically, in my opinion, is easier to do than defending. Unless you're like a brilliant defender and you just love defending. Well, I like black. I prefer black. I know more openings with black, and my middle game seems really strong with black. So maybe I like counter. Maybe I'm the counter attacker, if that makes sense. I let you play your style. I analyze it, and then I come up with ways to undermine and go from there. So yeah, the difference. 1800s, they have that they have that understanding of discipline, because they play a lot of games. They have to maintain that level. So they realize that in order to maintain that level, they have to be emotionally be sure of themselves, and they don't seem to lack a confidence issue. That's what I noticed. I'm not saying that those 1800s are really strong and they could beat 2100s easily. No, they can't. It's very uncommon. But the mindset they have is, they're definitely not affected by emotions as much. They could be intimidated by another ELO, but you have to realize is that you have to take that picture out of the way. Yes, it is a way to acknowledge that that person obviously has a high level skill. They can reach a certain level, unless they're using a computer, but let's not even get there. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to is at the game. because like I've been 2400s before in classical games, not because I was better than them, but because at that game I was better than them at that time that we were playing. That's another factor too. We're not computers. We don't play consistently every single time. Unless you're a professional, highly well trained, learning how to emotionally control yourself, you're not going to be playing consistently every single time. And some games you might be off, some games you might be on. Today, I was playing some speed games. I'm still mentally fatigued, and I can still tell I'm moving a lot slower than usual. When I played a classical game yesterday, I was mentally fatigued, but because there was no real time pressure on me, I was relaxed. You folks were listening. I was chilled, man. I was just like, yo, I'm on vacation, just playing chess, just relaxing. And when I was relaxing, I was still able to come up with pretty good moves and pretty good analysis. And I was telling all you my analysis, and well, I did really well. I only lost one game, and the reason why I didn't lose the game, I only lost one game, was because since there was no time pressure, I was able to deeply analyze more and really focus. And that's a thing about mental discipline. You play to your strengths when you know that the emotions are not a factor, and the person's ELO is not a factor. Even when I played again, I look at someone at 2400, I don't flinch. I know that the chances of me losing is a lot higher, but that doesn't matter while I'm actually on the field. Does that make sense? It's like competition. You know that if you start thinking about the opponent before you even get to the battlefield, you've already lost. Psychological warfare 101. You got to come in with the mentality that you can kill them, or at least in chess that you won't lose because you can either draw or win, etc. Now, what other aspects of discipline that is a gap between 50 and 1800? So we talked about blunders, we talked about emotions. Another thing that separates is the fact that sometimes you I feel as though time management could also be a possible factor. Now, if you're playing a game with no time, then there's no factor whatsoever. But I've noticed that people that play without a timer, they tend to move faster, especially lower rated players. And that's you need to stop. You need to slow down about that, and you need to take your good time and really concentrate. And when you concentrate, you build up that muscle memory of how to think, how to move, what to consider, what can my pieces do, what can their pieces do I have attacking chances, do I see any weaknesses, is there a knight or a bishop I need to position better, how many moves is this going to take, how many moves is it going to take for them to stop me. There's you It's kind of like a mental checklist. In fact, I might even write a video or make a video on what I would consider mentally when I do every single move. I think that's a good idea because then it'll allow me to show what I'm thinking at all times. And I'm not really thinking about blitz games because blitz is blitz. It's kind of more pattern recognition and understanding and knowledge of openings, etc., and end game stuff. But I'm talking about like classical games, which I know the majority of you play classical games, especially on the board. So yeah, I think I'm gonna make that my. I don't know if it's gonna be my next video or I'll do the 18 to 100 to 2100 ELO difference because believe me, there's a huge difference with that ELO too. But definitely, I'm gonna create that video. I'll call it the mental checklist or something of that nature. And I think that is important, especially for players that want to get into that set of thinking. Because again, thinking is a good thing, but overthinking or not feeling that you're confident or like I go on Reddit all the time and I see some comments are, oh, I don't know if this game was so good. I'm not sure if I do this. Well, number one, you're doing a good job by asking on Reddit. That's really great. I respond to some Reddit posts too as well if I'm really interested in seeing something or if someone asks a really nice question that definitely has some thought towards it. But keep that up and again, take your time and be disciplined. It's kind of like in life, right? It's like character. You need to focus on your character, like your chess identity, so that way when you're out there, nothing affects you, only exactly what's on the board. If that makes sense. Anyways, I think that's my biggest ideas of difference between a 1500 to 1800 player. If I would give you a conclusion of if you're a 1500 and you want to get to 1800, what do you focus on? Well, apart from increasing your understanding of chess, focus on not tilting. Focus on not worrying about your opponent. Focus on taking your time and looking for the right move and looking at all the factors. Even if it's slow, believe it or not, if you take 3 to 5 minutes on move, even if it's in the early game, that's still an improvement because guess what? You're just going to get better over time, slowly but surely. And then in the openings, you're not going to be thinking as much. And then when you get to the middle game, your mind's going to be already like fine-tuned because again, muscle memory will kick in. You'll just know where to go, or you'll just have a better understanding. Or more importantly, you can actually see a plan. And once you can see plans and not let anything affect you, then you're going to hit 1800. And there's no doubt in my mind, and I know you can all can do it. Not saying it's going to be easy, but trust me, we all had a beginning, and we can all excel if we play it the right way. And remember, folks, it's a lot easier to do things with others than it is by yourself. Trust me on that. I hope you enjoy this video. I will definitely have another video ready for tomorrow. I think I'll debate. I'm going to flip a coin and see if I want to do the 1800 to 2100 ELO one or the checklist. But yes, let me know in the comments section below. Do you want me to write a checklist, like a mental checklist on what things consider chess? Or another idea is maybe I can do videos on, in my opinion, like let's say the top 5 openings every beginner should learn, or the top 5 principles to know about in the middle game, or the end game, or when you're winning, or when you're losing. I can do a lot of those videos. I can do many things. So yeah, please give me your ideas. Post it in the comment section below. I always read. I always reply, at least like 90% of the time. And if you enjoy my content, by all means, keep watching me. I'm not going anywhere, even though I haven't made a video in the last 24 hours. You're going to be seeing more stuff from me. Right, for now, chess, but trust me, there's going to be other stuff coming along. In the meantime, I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a good night. This is Vajir, and see you later.